This is Gemara Rosh HaShanah Daf Chofei. All the learning as we conclude this month has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf, Rav Eli, the Zeicher Nishmas, his father, Rav Moshe ben Rechaim Alevi, whose neshama I'm sure is being oiled like Anidim Shalmaila, the schos of the entire learning of the entire Chabura. As well as today's learning should be a tremendous schos for Shlema for Rivka Dina Bat Etol, sponsored by her son-in-law, who also is a close friend of the Daf, and Amir Tashem, the learning of the entire Chabura should bring Rivka Dina Bat Etol a very quick refuah shlema bekariv, as well as the schoshin of Yisrael in the version remember as Yitzchak the Shabbos as the Bashan Makil Mordechai Bezna the Bashendel Yitzchak the Bashan Bashendel, as well as schos for Shem Shvil Yisman and the Bashan Ben Zelda Ben Ben Chaim Basar Shem Zin Reis Zerba Gnanti Basay Sarah yourself with the Jalei Shamas Nami Bashavik Shechan Shmo Ben Tildin Mechan Reis Mechay Ben Hilo Dinin Bashan Minas Viu Hegur Nora Nechel is what Zel Hurav Gov the Shem Zimach Lester B'Soich Shar Chayde Yisrael. We pick it up on the very bottom of Chof Dalid Amid Beis, continuing the process of vetting the Eidim and asserting that they're telling the truth, etc., etc. Says the Mishnah. And yesterday, of course, let's just remind ourselves, we learned the fascinating sugya of when you're allowed to make different pictures, figures, images. You're not allowed to make the menorah like the Beis Hamikdash. You're not allowed to make different pictures, the celestial beings. And of course, the Alach Lamaisa is tremendous, Yardea Kuf Mem Aleph, and Amir Tashem for another time. But for now, let's pick it up from the Mishnah on the very bottom of Chavdal Mabeis, Maisa Shabbat Shnayim. There was a story that two Eidim came, Amru, and they said, Riyunu Shachris. They said, we saw the new moon in the morning. Where? B'Mizrach, in the east. Let's move over to today's Daf, Chafei Amar Aleph, V'Aravis B'Mayriv. And they continue their story. They say, in the morning, we saw it in the east. In the evening, we saw it in the west. Amr Rav Yechanan, Nuriyedei Shekerheim, you big fat liar. Kshaboli Yavna, they came to Yavna, Kibla Rav Gamliel accepted them and said they are kosher Eidim. Story number one. Story number two, V'Oidbo Shnayim, there were two more Eidim that came. We saw it in the right time on day 30. But on the next night, we did not see it. Bekibla Rav Gamliel, in this case as well, Rav Gamliel accepted them as valid witnesses. Amar Rav Deisi ben Hurkinis, Eidei Shekerim. Again, just like Rabbi Yechanan Nuri originally says, now comes Rav Deisi ben Hurkinis and says, no, they are false witnesses. Can you say that today a woman gives birth and tomorrow her stomach's between her legs? Tomorrow she's still pregnant? If she gave birth, then she's not pregnant tomorrow. So if you saw the new moon, you can't the next day not to see the new moon. That is not a possibility. Amar Rav Yeshua. Says Rav Yeshua, I concur with your words that these Eidim are for sure not telling the truth, and therefore the new month must be extended to the requisite 30 days. Shalach la Rav Gamliel, continuing the story, because Rani Alecha, fascinating, famous words Rav Gamliel, he says to Rav Yeshua, I decree upon you, Shetava Yatzli, you have to come to me, B'maklecha, with your walking stick, B'maisecha, with your cash. When? Rav Gamliel argues with Rav Yeshua. It says, Rav Yeshua, you're concurring. You're saying they're Eidei Sheker. I'm the Nasi, says Rav Gamliel. I win. You have to go and be quote unquote Mechalel Yom Kippur on the day that I said is not Yom Kippur. The day that you said is yes Yom Kippur. You have to go take your walking stick, take your cash, and you have to come and meet me. Says the Gemara, Halach Umatzar Rav Gamliel, Rav Kiva Meitzar. Rav Kiva was quite upset. Rav Akiva was upset that Rav Gamliel told him that he has to, on some level, desecrate Yom Kippur according to his calculation. Amar Loi, Rav Akiva says to Rav Yeshua, Yeshli Lelmoid. I can show Shekol Mash as Rav Gamliel Asoi. Whatever Rav Gamliel did, even if he's wrong, he's right. Shenemar Elamad Hashem Ikrai Kodesh Atikru Oisam Bein Bizmanom Bein Shloi Bizmanom. It's all up to the words of Bezdin. A fascinating idea, even if it's incorrect, says Rav Gamliel. Even if it's incorrect, says Rav Akiva. Excuse me. The fact that the Nasi, the fact that the Bezdin said it's a new month, that is the way that it is. Ein Li Maya Dais. We do not have any aside for these, and therefore, says the Gemara, Ba'alai Eitel Rav Deisa ben Hyrcanus. Rav Yeshua came to Rav Deisa ben Hyrcanus. Amar Lai in Ba'ananu Ladun Achar Bezdin Rav Gamliel. If you're going to come and ask questions, you're upset. Rav Gamliel is telling you to quote unquote desecrate Yom Kippur. If you're going to start asking questions, Srichan Anu Ladun Achar Kol Bezdin U Bezdin Shamni Mas Yeshua Vadachshav. Then we have to start asking questions about everyone. You're going to say Rav Gamliel is wrong. We're going to have to start saying every Bezdin maybe is wrong in the first wide line. Shenamar is the Torah says the Al Moshe Aaron Nadav Avihu v'shivim is Iknei Yisrael. Says Moshe Aaron Nadav Avihu and the 70 elders. Why doesn't it teach us what are the names of these 70 elders? Ella, you know why? Explains. Rav Yeshua Rav Deisa ben Hyrcanus lelamid shekol shleisha v'shleisha sha'amad bezdin. Each and every 3 people that create a bezdin al Yisrael arehu kebezdino shal Moshe. They're like the bezdin of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's irrelevant who the 70 Zikanim are. It's teaching us that when a bezdin is formed, they have a status of a bezdin 100%, and therefore Rav Gamliel said it's not Yom Kippur. It's not Yom Kippur. So what happened? Natal Ma'akaloi. Rav Yeshua takes his walking stick u'maisav and his money b'yadai v'halach liyavne, and he goes to Yavne. Eitzel Rav Gamliel to Rav Gamliel b'yoiv shechal liyos Yom Kippurim liyos b'cheshbana, in the day that he thought should have been Yom Kippur. Oh my Rav Gamliel sees that Rav Yeshua is coming. V'nashke al Rosh. Rav Gamliel kisses him on his head and Amar Allah, boy b'shalom, you should come in, please. Rabbi v'talmidai, you're my Rabbi, my teacher, v'talmidai, my disciple. Rabbi b'chachma, v'talmidai, you know why? You might be greater than me, says Rav Gamliel, admitting to Rav Yeshua. You might even be indeed smarter than I, the Rabbi. However, you're my Talmud, shekibalti es tavarai, because I am the Nasi and you accepted my words. And of course, this Mishnah, this fascinating story, how Rav Yeshua accepted the words of Rav Gamliel to the extent that he quote unquote was Mechalel desecrated Yom Kippur, is one of the large sources exactly how one has to accept the ruling of a Rebbe. Of course, this is a higher level. This is a Nasi. This is like the Gadol Adar. This is the top that you can't ask questions and you have to go 100%. And this is a part of a large discussion. Is one allowed to argue? Is one allowed to re-ask a question? Etc., etc. But that's the Mishnah. And now we begin the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we learned in the Brayso, Amar Rav Gamliel. Rav Gamliel said to the Chachamim, they're busy asking, how could you accept these Eidim? They're for sure telling it not true. Let's go back into the story. Could a pregnant woman one day give birth and the next day be pregnant? How could they see the moon today and tomorrow not see it? What happened? If you saw the new moon, it doesn't disappear? Says the Gemara. Or I should say the opposite. Yeah, says the Gemara. Let's leave it at that. Sometimes it takes a long route, sometimes it takes a short route, and this is explaining how the moon could be one time in the east and one time on the west. It takes different travels. And Amar Rav Yechon, my time of the Rabbi Dechsev, also Yarach L'Moyadim. Now we have a source for the din that we just said, that he made the mood l'mayadam in the appropriate times. Shemesh yada b'voyi, Shemesh the sun, that he knows it's coming. Shemesh udiyada, the sun who knows is coming. For the sun is always a constant. Mevoyi yarech l'yada mevoyi, but the moon you don't know because the coming of the moon varies, and that's a source. That's a proof to that which we just said, that the moon sometimes could travel faster, sometimes could travel slower. And says the Gemara. Excuse me. Rav Chia once saw that the old moon in the morning, the Eser Matisha on the 29th, he took a fascinating story. He took a piece of earth and he throws it at the moon. And Omar, he talks to the moon and he says, Lord, at the evening, we have to make the new month. And you're standing over here, go disappear. Of course, based on that which we learned a few days ago, that if we see the moon in the morning, that night can't be Rosh Chodesh. So Rav Chia goes and takes a clod of earth and throws it and talks to the moon. It says, get out of here. If you're here, we're not going to be able to make the new moon tonight. Amar lei Rabbi Rav Chia Zil. Rabbi Rav Chia says Rav Chia Zil le'ein, go to Ein Tav. V'ketshua liyarchan, there you'll be able to make the new month. Shalach lei simana, and he sent him a siman, which this line over here is the precursor of that which we say in Kiddush HaChodesh every month. David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayom. David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayom, that you're able to sanctify the new moon, even though you can't do it over here. You go to another place place, and you'll be able to sanctify the moon over there. And of course, says Rashi, this is because David HaMelech is compared to the moon. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbana B'machas Niskashu Shemayim Ba'avim. One time the sky was cloudy. And here is the Muslavana B'Esem Adeshla Chaydish, and it seemed like they saw the moon on the 29th. Kisfur Ma'am, the people thought Leimer Rosh Chaydish. Ubikshu Bezdin like Hadshay, and Bezdin was going to make a Rosh Chaydish. Amar Rav Gamliel. Says Rav Gamliel, wait! Kach Mikoblani Meizavi Abba, accepted from my father, Ein Chadusha Shalavana B'chud Me'esem Adesha V'yoim, Umechsa Shlei Shlishi Shav Ein Gimel Chalakim. You can never have a month less than 29 and a half and 2/3 and 73 Chalakim. And therefore, it's impossible, because it's only 29 days, that it is Rosh Chodesh yet. Continues the Gemara, Mesa Imay Ben Zaza, the mother of Ben Zaza, not such a common name. The mother of Ben Zaza is Nifter Vespido Rav Gamliel has Spid Gadol. You know why? Loi Mibnei Sharoya Lekach El Kedei Sheyedu Am Shal Geshu Bezdin as a Chodesh, so that everyone knows it's not Rosh Chodesh, because Rosh Chodesh you can't have Espedim. So Rav Gamliel gets up and gives a very, very long Espid, so that no one has any thoughts that it is Rosh Chodesh. Just to point out a very interesting Rashi. First of all, Rashi, David Melch Yisrael, Rashi is where he points out that David is like the moon. But Rashi over here, no, not Rashi over here, so let's continue. I don't know where it went. Says the Gemara, Olech Rabbi Kiva, Umatzai Meitzer, Rabbi Kiva was upset. Ibailu, this is the story that he made him B'deskri Yom Kippur, quote unquote. Ibailu, mi Meitzer. And everyone's wondering this question. I'm sorry, we didn't articulate this in the Mishnah. What's going on over here? Rabbi Yeshua was the one that walked with the walking stick, not Rabbi Kiva. Mi Meitzer, who's upset? Rabbi Kiva Meitzer, Rabbi Yeshua Meitzer. What exactly is the story? Tashem Rabbi Kiva umatin Rabbi Yeshua kshu Meitzer. Rabbi Kiva saw Rabbi Yeshua was upset. Amar Loi Rabbi Nemata Meitzer Amar Loi Rabbi Kiva Roy Lashiba Lamita Yud Beis Chaydash Va'yigzer Alav Gzirazu. It's better. I would have been in bed for a full year and not to have this dreadful decree that at some level I have to Deskri Yom Kippur to listen to the Rebbe. Amar Loi. Rabbi Kiva responds, Rabbi, permit me, as someone should talk to our Rebbe. You don't just answer, you don't just comment. You say, Rebbe, can allow me to say something. Amar Lo, he responds, Amar say, Amar Lo, it says, Atem. It says 3 times with regard to Kiddush HaChodesh, making the new moon, new month. Gimel Bam Atem, Afilu, what do we learn out from here? Shoyigim Atem, Afilu Meizidim Atem, Afilu Mutain. Whether the Bezin is making a mistake on purpose by mistake, or mutan, they just were misled in any one of these cases. Meaning, this is what we learned to the Mishnah. It's all up to the Bezdin. If the Bezdin says Rosh Chodesh even by mistake or on purpose, like we saw the other day, they're allowed to quote unquote lie to make the month work out for communal affairs. The vegetables don't spoil, the corpses don't spoil. Or mutan, if they got misled by some evil. When it says in any of the cases, when Bezdin says Mekudosh, that is what makes the new moon. The full power of Klal Yisrael, we see how incredible it is. Different reasons are given, perhaps because it's the first mitzvah, but the bottom line is we see that we are in control. We create the new moon to the extent, even if it's a mistake, that is how we go. Says the Gemara, Bola Eitz Rabbi Yosef ben Durkanes. Continuing the story of Yeshua Kinder of Nisban Hurk and his son Rabbanan. Why didn't we say the name of the 70 elders? You know why? This is elaborating on what the Mishnah said. People should not say Adam Pliny Kamoshe Aaron, Pliny Kenad Vaviu, Pliny Keldan Umeidad. So people should not say that in this Bezdin it's like Moshe. Is this Bezdin like Moshe and Aaron? Is this Bezdin like Nadav Avihu or Eldan Umeidad? Not, and therefore people will start questioning the validity of each and every Bezdin. So we purposely left out the names in order to show, no, if you have the status of a Bezdin, that's all it means. And furthermore, it says, V'yimer Shmuel Elohama Hashem, Asher says Moshe v'Aaron, and Shmuel says to the nation, Hashem, Asher says Moshe Aaron, who made Moshe and Aaron. Another pasuk says, V'yishlach Hashem es Yeruval v'es Badan v'es Yiftach, and Hashem sent Yeruval, Badan, and Yiftach as Shmuel and Shmuel. Yeruval Zagidain v'Lamenik Yishua Yeruval Shasa Meriva me'Habal, because he made a fight with the Baal, a certain type of a desire. Badan that Shimshon V'Lamenik Rosh Shemai. Badan Dasi Midan. Yiftach, what is Yiftach K'mashmai? As the name sounds. As we turn over to Chavei Amid Beis, as we're about to wrap up the Perek, V'Omer, the pasuk says, Moshe the Aaron, we say this every Friday night, V'Chaya Anov, in their kahuna and their priest, Shmuel Bekari Shemai. So what do we learn out from all of this? Shakal HaKasav Shleisha Kali Olam. The pasuk, the Torah equates the three of the smallest, Kishleisha Chamurei Olam, like three of the greatest. Three of the smallest are equated. The previous pasuk says Yerubaal, Beidan, Yiftach. And what are we equating them with? Moshe, Aaron, and Shmuel. What does this teach us? Loimer Lecha, 3 lines in the Bab. 3 lines in the tab, Yerubaal B'dairei ke Moshe B'dairei. Yerubaal in his generation is like Moshe B'dan B'dairei ke Aaron B'dairei Yiftach B'dairei ke Shmuel B'dairei. Lilamedcha, such an incredible lesson, such chizik, such power we could take. The incredible power of each and every person. Lamedcha. Shafilu Kal Shabekalim and Ismana Parnas Al Tzibar. You might feel small, but you're made a leader. You're part of Bezdin. Hareo Kavir Shavavirim. You're like the greatest of the great. And another source to this, you should come to the Kain and Levi in your days. What do you think? You're going to go to someone who's not in your days? What does the pasuk mean? All you go to is the judge in your days. That's all that we have. Never say that in the original days is better than these. And of course, this is incredible chizik that each person could be as great as he could be, and then he's equated to Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest human being to ever live. If in your generation you fulfill your potential to what you could do, in your generation you might be very small, but you're equated all the way up to Moshe, Aaron, and Shmuel in their generation. Says the Gemara as we conclude the parak, now, what did Rabbi Yeshua take? His walking stick and his cash. Tana Rabbana, we learned. Kivin Shara, he saw Amman Mikisa Vinashikal Rosh Gamliel saw him. He got up from his chair and he kissed him. Amar le Shalom Alecha Rabbi. V'talmidi Shalom to my Rabbi, my teacher, my disciple. Rabbi Shalom Alati Torah. Berabim, you're my Rebbe. Why? Because you taught Torah. My Torah, Rav Gamliel says, you've taught my Torah in public. V'talmidai, shani gazelech gzeira, he made a decree upon you about the Mekayma, Ketalman, and you fulfilled it like a Talmud. Ashrei Adar, and Rav Gamliel continues, praiseworthy is the generation, shagadoilim nishmaim liketanim, that the great listen to the small. Rav Gamliel pointing out that he listened at some level to Rav Yeshua, Kalva Chaimer, Ketanim liketoilim. Certainly the small listens to the big. Kalva Chaimer, Chayubu. What do you mean? Of course the small has listened to the big. Because the great are not haughty, they're able to even listen to those that are smaller than they. So then the Ketanim take a Gavul Chaimer and say, if they could do it, certainly we could do it. We must do a fabulous, fascinating chazara of this parak, a bit of a shorter parak, the parak that basically concluded all the halachas of the Eidas HaChodesh, the new moon. And now we're going to start that strong into the third parak, which is going to first begin by wrapping up the halachas of Eidas HaChodesh, and then we'll segue tomorrow into the halachas of Rosh HaShanah, the Shofar, etc. Says the Mishnah, Ra'u Bezdin Choy Yisrael. Let's say Bezdin and the entire Klal Yisrael saw the new moon, and of course it's a bit of a question, what's this Mishnah doing here? It would seem to be part of the previous parak, but this is where it is. Sound familiar? We had this in the Gemara 2 days ago. They checked out the Eidim, and they did not have a chance to sanctify the new month until it gets dark. So automatically Ma'obar can't make a Rosh Chodesh anymore. Ruah Bezdin Bilvad. Let's say only Bezdin saw the new moon. Yamdu Shnayim, 2 of the people in Bezdin get up. Yud Bifneim, they give testimony in front of the other people in Bezdin. V'yamru Mekudesh Mekudesh. Ruah Shleisha Ve'ein Bezdin. 3 people see in the air Bezdin. Yamdu Hashnayim Ve'yeshiva Mechavreim. They get some other people to sit with the third remaining guy. Eitz La Yachid. V'yed Bifneim, and he gets testimony in front of them. V'yamru Mekudesh Mekudesh. And Yachid Naman Ali De'atzmai. Because a singular person is not believed unto himself. Says the Gemara, will begin the first piece of Gemara dealing with the first part of the Mishnah. Why did the Mishnah have to list that Bezdin and the entire Klal Yisrael saw the new moon? What's the Chiddush? Explains the Gemara, it's Itzrich, we needed it. I would have thought Bezdin, since Bezdin and the entire Klal Yisrael saw it, therefore everyone knows about it. And if everyone knows about it, even if you don't get a chance to say Mekudosh, maybe it's implicitly Mekudosh because everyone knows. And you shouldn't push it off another day. Kamashman that we do. Why? Because you didn't get a chance to say Mekudosh. What if say the next case that they checked the Eidim? Explains the Gemara. This is what the Mishnah means. Inami, a second case. They checked out the Eidim and they didn't get a chance to say Mekudosh. Why do you have to say that? It's implied once it's nighttime. Why do you have to say the case that they checked out the Eidim at all? Again, once we said that they all saw it, why do we have to say? One more time, I read it incorrectly. One more time. Once we said the case that once it gets dark, the month is full, why do we need to talk about the case of the Eidim at all? It's an extra case. Explains the Gemara. Maybe the mere checking of the Eidim has the status of making a new month. And maybe that's the end. Meaning, maybe it's as if the court case started and that's just the conclusion. And therefore, what would we think? You could even make a new month at night. Is like we find by monetary cases, it's not. If you start a court case by day, you're allowed to finish a court case at night, even though in general, Bezin does not work at night. But if you started a monetary case by day, you finish at night. So the Hava Amina, the thought would have been, Kamash Malan, you're not allowed to. Ask the Gemara, 1 second, that was such a beautiful idea. Maybe you could. Explains the Gemara, Amar Kra. When is it a chayk? When is it a law? And therefore it cannot be done at night, even though we would have a havamina to equate it to monetary cases. At the end of the day, says the Gemara, it can never make a new moon, a new month at night, and if you missed it, it will have to be a leap month, have to be a malay, and we'll pick up from here, Mirz Hashem, tomorrow.